So we're starting with some statistics. We'll start with some vocabulary. Be helpful if we knew what we were talking about as we spoke. So let's start up here. So these three words right here, mean, median, and mode, those three things together are our measures of central tendency, or measures of center. That's pretty self-explanatory as far as what they mean. But it just means the middle of your data. What could be the center? Okay, your most reliable center. Sometimes you'll use reliable, one or the other. Okay, it's depending on what you have. But let's talk about what each one of them are. So mean, typically that's the average. And we'll talk about how to find these after. Okay, but your average is kind of how grades are done. Median is your middle. It's your middle value. Okay, so like you put the values in order, it's whichever one's right in the middle. Your mode is what you see most often, or it's most common. So if you have 12 nines in your data set and one of every other number, then 9's going to be your mode because you have the most of them. Okay, so all three of those things in different situations are going to be, if you were to describe the center of your data. Range, that's the difference of your largest value subtracting your smallest value. Now you'll notice range is in green because that goes with your measure of variability. So the word variability, basically it comes down to how much it varies. How wide is it spread? How many data points does it encompass? Okay, so like, do you have data points from 0 through 1,000,000? Or do you have data points from 17 to 21? Right? That's your measures of variability. Other things that can affect that are outliers. So if we come down here, an outlier is just a number or a data point that falls far away from the rest of the data. So like if it's going to be low, maybe your data goes from 22 to 30. Okay, so an outlier would be like 2 or 50. These would be outliers. So they are far from your typical values you have in your data set. And they can affect your center in different ways. And we'll take a look at those in other videos, okay? All right. So extremely high and extremely low values. Those are the words I couldn't find. All right, there's also a formula for that, but we'll get into that too. The other two measures of variability, besides range, are the interquartile range and the mean absolute deviation. So these just have to do with how your numbers are spread out. Okay, and that's basically variability. It's just how your numbers are spread out. Your range is the very basic. This is how many pieces of data you have between this range and this range, or this value and this value. Now these two take it a little bit further, and you split them up into smaller like parts. All right, lastly, we have these skewed numbers, skewed graphs. All right, now this one is like your typical bell curve. It's symmetric. It looks the same. If you were to draw a line down, it looks the same on both sides. Okay, on a graph, the little tiny part right here, this is called a tail. You have it on both of these. Now, it's skewed left or skewed right, depending on where the tail lies. Not the bulk of the data, but the tail. So this one, my tail, is right here. So it's left. It's skewed left. This one, it's not going to have an arrow on it, but like I like to show that that's the way it's going and that's where the tail is, right? That's skewed right. This one is mostly uniform. It's mostly the same, right? Uniform means the same. This one, bimodal, means it has two data points, like a camel. It's got two peaks, okay? Multimodal, as you've probably guessed, has more than two peaks, okay? Typically with one peak, it's going to be symmetric, skewed left or skewed right. Uniform, they're mostly all the same. Bimodal, bi means two, it has two. Multi means it has more than two. It can have 3, 4, 5, 6, depends on your data.